lesson 6-2, proportions. Again, make sure you write down this vocabulary word and put it on your notes so that you'll have it for future reference. A proportion is two ratios that are equal. For example, 1/2 equals 10/20. That is a proportion because 1/2 is indeed equal to 10/20. In a proportion, your cross products are equal to each other. Cross products means this. You multiply in an x. Okay? 6 times 12 is one cross product. 8 times 9 is a second cross product. 6 times 12 equals 72, and 9 times 8 equals 72. The cross products must be equal in order for a proportion to be equal. Not all proportions have just numbers in them, so you will sometimes have cross products that happen to be letters. Here we have A times D and B times C. A times D is equal to B times C. Whatever A and B and C are, when we plug them in. That's what cross products are. If a proportion contains a variable, it can be solved by using the cross products. The easiest way to solve a proportion is by using cross products because it works 100% of the time, all of the time. There are some other methods, but the only method I truly use is cross products because cross products is the fastest and works 100% of the time. So if I was going to solve this first proportion, 2y equals 7, 2 over 7 equals y over 14, I will do the cross products. In other words, I will multiply 2 times 14, and that will equal y times 7. If you remember, we're going to do 2 times 14 equals 7 times y. So 2 times 14 is 28, and that equals 7 times y, which is 7y. To get y by itself, divide both sides of the equation by 7. 28 divided by 7 is 4, so y equals 4. Easy enough. If I put 4 in for y, I get 4/14, which does indeed reduce to 2 7ths. If we look at problem number 2 here, h over 9 equals 2 over 3. Again, using cross products, I will have 3 times h equals 2 times 9. And yes, I know you can do this in your head, but I do want you to show it on your paper because I need to make sure that you are setting up your cross products properly. And you'll get better luck at preparing yourself and remembering how to solve a proportion if you write it out properly. So here we have 3h equals 18. Divide by 3 to get h by itself, and h will equal 6. I don't want to write there. It's so sad. And it's just really odd. There we go. In this last problem, 4/5 equals t over 55. Again, we'll use the cross product, so 5 times t is 5t, and 4 times 55. Those are our cross products. 5 times t is 5t, 4 times 55. If you want to, you can use your calculator. If you're doing it multiplying in your head, you won't have to, you'll know it's 220. Divide both sides by 5. T will equal 44. Solving a proportion is not a complicated process. You just have to remember the steps. Multiply your cross products, and then solve for your variable just like you were solving something else. Now remember, 2 ratios form a proportion. However, just not any 2 ratios form a proportion. 2 equal ratios form a proportion. So to tell whether or not 2 ratios form a proportion, check to see if their cross products are equal. That's the easiest and fastest way to do it. So if I needed to know if 6 over 9 was equal to 4 over 6, I want to know if these cross products are equal. I want to know if these ratios are equal. So I will simply do the cross products. I will find out if their cross products are equal. And if the cross products are equal, then those 2 ratios do form a proportion. So simply enough, I want to know, does 6 times 6, does that equal 4 times 9? Well, 6 times 6 is 36, and 9 times 4 is 36. So yes, these form a proportion because the cross products are equal. Okay, it says, tell whether the 2 ratios form a proportion and explain. Yes, they form a proportion because cross products are equal. Number 2 here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to look at my cross products. So I want to know 15 times 7, does that equal 5 times 20? 15 times 7 is 105. Does that equal 5 times 20 is 100? 105 does not equal 100. So we would say no, cross products are not equal. So in this particular case, they do not form a proportion. Last one, 7/12 equals 175/30. Okay? And you're like, I'm not really sure. That's a really big number. Well, let's find out. So if you look at this, 7 times 30, does that equal 12 times 175? My brain is beginning to say probably not. Because I'm thinking 175 times 12 is going to be a really large number, and 7 times 30 is only 210. 175 times 12 is 2100. So never, those are not equal. So no, that does not form a proportion because cross products, again, are not equal. Now, many real-world problems can be solved using proportions. For example, if I have this following problem, 100 rods is about 275 fathoms. How many fathoms is 25 rods? You might be going, what in the world is a rod and a fathom? They happen to be maritime, otherwise known as shipping or boating distances. Okay? Because you have rods, you have fathoms, and then you have leagues. If you've ever heard of the story 25 Leagues Under the Sea, then you'll understand that the leagues is the distance underneath the sea that they're talking about. So here we have 100 rods is about 275 fathoms. About how many fathoms is 25 rods? The only thing you need to do when you're setting up a proportion is make sure that your two sides are equal to each other. For example, they talked about rods and then went to fathoms. So I'm going to set my proportion up as rods over fathoms. If I have rods over fathoms on the left-hand side, I better have rods over fathoms on the right-hand side. You can't go rods over fathoms equals fathoms over rods. You can do rods over fathoms equals rods over fathoms, or you could do fathoms over rods equals fathoms over rods. But you can't have one be one fraction and the other one be the reciprocal of the other fraction. Now that I know I'm going to do rods to fathoms, it says 100 rods is about 275 fathoms. About how many fathoms is 25 rods? So 25 rods goes on top. How many fathoms goes on bottom? Just make sure you set your proportion up properly by putting the numbers in the correct places. That's why I always set up my proportion here so that I can look at it and go, okay, which number went on top, which number is supposed to go on bottom. Then again, we'll cross multiply. So we will have 100x. So 100x equals 25 times 275. So 100x equals 6,875. To solve for x, I will divide by 100. So x will equal 6.875. And of course, I should label it and put it in a complete sentence. So if I go back at the top, it says about how many fathoms is 25 rods. Okay, 25 rods is about 6.875 fathoms. And we use the word about because they use the word about in the problem. And there we have it. Decimal point. Not very well. There we go. 6.875 fathoms. So as you can clearly see, you can do lots of things with proportions. Proportions are a very, very helpful tool. It's probably one of the most used mathematical tools that I use in all of my math classes, which means many of my students use it as well.